Welcome to this review of the Ferrari 312 by Scalextric. What we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the car itself, look at the actual detail, then we're going to look underneath the body shell, look at the mechanics of the car, see any features that we might find interesting. Then we're going to give it a test run around our track, do some timed laps and see how well the car itself performs. And then we're going to look at any modifications that either are a must-have, that we simply have to do, or that we would like to do, just nice to haves. If there is anything critically wrong with the performance of the car, we will make those modifications and you'll see those at the end of the video itself. So let's get cracking. So here is the Ferrari 312T3. It's a very nice looking model. It comes with a driver figure. It's got decals both on the wings, up the body shell itself and down the side. It's got these very nice plastic aluminium wheels which look very good. It's got some engine detailing at the back there as well. So a few highlights on the top that you can see here. So all in all, a very nice looking car. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I think particularly compared to say today's high resistant models, that this is a lovely example, but not quite as good as the more advanced Scalextric models that you see. One of the things that you can't help but see, and I hope it will come through on the video, is I'm actually able to move that screwdriver underneath that front wheel. The car itself is not sitting on the front wheels, it's sat on the guide. So from a support perspective, it's the guide and then the two rear wheels here. This front axle plays no part in the control of the car in a straight line, and certainly when it comes to cornering, this front axle just simply flops around. So interesting design. I will see how it runs. I've run this car already, but I'll show you how it runs. You'll see it for yourself. So let's take a look underneath and see what we've got. So I've just got one screw left to undo. The car itself has got a chassis, so there is a solid chassis here. Some of the early models were all open and the actual components themselves were attached to the inside of the body shell. Not the case here, and I much prefer that, by the way. So the top itself is removed and you've got 4 screw holes. I was very lucky, this was an eBay purchase and none of these are damaged in any way, shape or form, so that was good. Did actually have to buy the wing as a separate part because it didn't come with it. But all in all, this car here with new tyres was about £12.50, so not an expensive car at all. And that's kind of my aim for all of these reviews, is cars that are cheap. So I had to replace the rear tyres. As you can see though, you've got the axle just lifts out. It's not held in any way. So modern day cars, you clip the axle in. Sometimes you even super glue in on the bearings so that the lack of vibration, if you like, of the motor running against the gear. But in this case, there are just areas to rest the bearings and there are equal areas on the inside of the body shell where you just rest those bearings. So it just kind of clams shut. The motor is an interesting design. Not really going to be able to pick it up too clearly on the video itself, but here are the brushes and they're held in by springs. So I can loosen those springs, I can remove those springs, I can remove the brushes, giving me full access to the motor's commutator, whether that's to give it a clean with an eraser, whether that's to add some com drops. I have full access to this motor, so that's a nice design feature. It's certainly a surprise for me. I hadn't realised that Scalextric produced motors of this type. At the front, you've got the axle. We've already seen that just flops around. There's a spacer in the middle of the axle itself, and that sits between 2 uprights on the chassis, and that just stops it from going left or right, but of course it doesn't stop it from tipping around. And then right at the very front here we have the guide itself where it's held in. The chassis itself is very flat. You may notice if you've been looking at other cars that there's no magnet in this car, so there's no place for a magnet either inside or outside on the chassis. So this is a non-magnet car. Be easy enough to tape one in there because we've got a lot of room. and from a modification perspective, or from a tuning perspective rather, it'd be very easy to tape some weight in here if we felt that that was needed, either to the left and right of the motor or indeed to the front of the motor. So lots of open space, lots of modification, places to put modifications if we so wish to go that route. So we're now going to give the car a run around the track. I'll put it back together again and I will meet you trackside, and we will see how well this car goes. Remembering that this is in the region of 40 years old. Okay, so body's back on and the car is ready to go. And on the phone, I've got here a lap counting piece of software, and it's going to call out the laps as we go around, so you should be able to hear the laps as we go around. The aim here is not to do the fastest lap that this car can possibly do. The aim is to see whether or not the car is all right. Is it okay to drive? Is it going to get around the track okay? Is it reasonably fast? Whilst also we will be hearing the lap times, whilst they're not really the key to what we're doing here, it's more about understanding whether or not the car itself is any good. So I'm going to press start. We have an out lap, and then the next time we come down the straight, we'll start counting the laps. Okay, so we're off. Just a nice smooth drive at the moment. The car is quite quiet as well, and also there's not very many brakes happening. 0.00. So that's the first line through. A little bit of ticking.
7.17.
Not as bad as I thought it would be.
7.17.
The car's quite nice to drive though. I think it's quick.
6.73. 6.80.
Too much ticking there, bit sliding.
6.66.
Okay, so there we have it, 5 laps, and the fastest recorded lap was 6.66. But from my perspective, driving that car was quite nice. It's quite quiet, it's very smooth. It's got a good little bit of acceleration. Yes, you have to slow down for the corners, but then, you know, what car don't you have to do that for? I'm not about to go out and start racing this in competition, but when I'm driving it around this track, it's driving at a reasonable rate. I'm not crawling around corners so slowly in case it falls out the slot. Indeed, I can just carry on driving this at a reasonable rate without having to really think about it too much. It's just a very, very drivable car. And this is something that was built in 1979 to 1982. I mean, it's a living miracle if you ask me. But there we go. I hope you enjoyed that review. I hope you've, maybe would think about buying one of these cars. As I say, they're widely available on eBay. If you like this sort of chat, if you want to see more of this, I'm going to be doing a review on a few other cars, a few of these 1980 style cars, some of the popular ones. So yeah, just subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. All the best.